If one day science proves that before human civilization there really existed an event in which it was destroyed by a flood, would you believe it? Because in almost all ancient civilizations, the same memory has been passed down: a great flood that destroyed the world. Cities were swallowed up, the land was submerged, human civilization was almost wiped out, and only a very few survivors lived on and restarted history. What's even stranger is that this story appears in almost all ancient civilizations. Similar flood legends are recorded in the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh and ancient Egyptian documents. Even the ancient Greek philosopher Plato wrote about a highly civilized place called Atlantis that disappeared in a disaster. And according to him, all this happened 9,000 years ago, around 360 BC. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato first detailed the legend of a lost continent called Atlantis in his two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Since then, historians and researchers have been debating endlessly whether this so-called pre-flood civilization is just a myth or an ancient civilization that actually once existed. Some even propose a bold view that the destroyed civilization, described by Plato, may be hidden beneath Antarctica. Some researchers believe that about 13,000 years ago, there was once a highly prosperous civilization in Antarctica. Even more radical theories suggest that this civilization originally came from outer space and established its own base in Antarctica, after which a drastic pole shift occurred. That caused the entire continent to be rapidly frozen, and eventually covered by thick ice layers, the Antarctica we see today. In their view, all the clues to this are actually already hidden in Plato's records about the final moments of Atlantis. According to this interpretation, Atlantis was not an ordinary human civilization, but an alien colony established on Earth, and after the pole shift event, this civilization was buried beneath the ice layers, right in the area of today's Antarctica. As more and more pieces are put together, people can't help but start to wonder whether one day we might really unlock the secrets hidden in the Antarctic continent. But the question is, if that day really comes, what would we discover there? Some modern truth seekers even claim that many things in Antarctica are being deliberately concealed. They believe that beneath that ice layer lie buried ruins of ancient civilizations or even alien technology. Some boldly say that Antarctica may have always been a base for alien civilizations on Earth. After all, this is one of the most isolated and hardest to access places on Earth, long uninhabited and rarely fully explored. In a sense, it is indeed an ideal location to hide secrets, and the story of Atlantis itself is full of mysteries. Plato described in Timaeus and Critias that this lost civilization once had a highly developed social structure and technology, and possessed a magnificent temple dedicated to the sea god Poseidon. In the center of the temple stood a pillar inscribed with laws and history, and this pillar was said to be made of a mysterious metal, a material called orichalcum. Plato said this metal shone with a red glow, looking as dazzling as flames. It was one of Atlantis' most precious resources. For thousands of years, people thought this metal was just a myth, until 2015, when a marine archaeologist discovered an ancient shipwreck near Sicily. In the shipwreck, people found 39 metal nails. After analysis, researchers discovered that these metals were exactly the orichalcum mentioned in ancient texts. This discovery once again raises the question: was the story Plato told really just a myth? Studies show that this metal consists of approximately 80% copper and 20% zinc. And interestingly, zinc does not exist in pure metal form in nature. It usually only exists in a sulfide, or called that is to say, to obtain zinc, it must first be extracted from the ore through smelting technology. The problem lies here. According to traditional historical understanding, in the era described by Plato, humans did not possess such smelting technology, and Plato himself did not explain the source of this metal. He only said one sentence: this metal comes from an unknown place. In early human concepts, mastering metal technology was considered a gift from the divine realm. The ancients believed humans originally did not know how to smelt metals. This knowledge must have been taught by the god. According to the ancient astronaut theory, the reason human ancestors were able to master various scientific technologies was because they had been guided by alien civilizations. It was these beings from outer space who taught humans metallurgy, taught them how to process metals with the most primitive tools, and step by step pushed human civilization forward, ultimately leading humanity to the highly civilized state we have today. In the 4th century BC, in Athens, Greece, the philosopher Plato, in his famous dialogues Timaeus and Critias, told a story about a lost continent. Plato wrote that 9,000 years before his time, there once existed a highly advanced civilization, Atlantis. Legend has it that this island was created by the sea god Poseidon, and the inhabitants of the island possessed extremely advanced technology. However, this glorious civilization was ultimately destroyed in a massive disaster. The entire continent sank into the sea. Some researchers have found that this story bears striking similarities to some ancient legends of Native American tribes. For example, the Hopi people and other Pueblo tribes all tell a story about the destruction of the Third World. In their tradition, The reason humans encountered that devastating disaster was because humans became greedy and gradually deviated from the spiritual path guided by the Creator. Interestingly, this statement is almost identical to Plato's description of the destruction of Atlantis. In Plato's story, the Atlanteans were also created by gods. But when humans began to indulge in materialism and stray from the laws of the gods, this civilization was ultimately swallowed by the flood. This astonishing correspondence makes one wonder whether the ancient Greek story about Atlantis really has some connection with the ancient legends of Native Americans. The ancient astronaut theory also proposes that among early Native Americans there circulated another legend very similar to Atlantis, the story of the lost city of Atlantis. In some indigenous traditions, the origin of human civilization is traced back to an ancient land, called Aztlan. According to Aztec mythology and the oral histories of tribes such as the Hopi, this place is considered one of the cradles of civilization. Therefore, in many ancient legends, this mysterious land of origin is vaguely mentioned. Of course, the academic community has always debated what Aztlan actually looked like, but one point is very interesting. The Aztecs once said that their capital Tenochtitlan was built in the image of Aztlan. This city was built in the middle of a lake. Connected to the land by causeways, the entire city was surrounded by water and looked like an island floating in the lake. Such a structure easily reminds one of the city described by Plato in the Atlantis story. According to Aztec records, the war god Huitzilopochtli is considered the founder of Tenochtitlan, and in the view of ancient astronaut theory supporters, this creates another intriguing connection with Plato's description of Atlantis. In the Atlantis story, the entire city was ruled by the sea god Poseidon, while in the Aztlan legend it was also a god who created and ruled that land. Some researchers even propose a bolder view, that these gods may not have been gods but visitors from outer space. In their view, Atlantis was actually a highly advanced space, possessing certain special technologies that were not accessible to ordinary people. Similar claims can be found in the Aztlan legend as well. There, special knowledge and technology existed and were strictly controlled. Not everyone could access it. When such similar stories appear across different cultures, some begin to suspect that perhaps these ancient civilizations had all encountered the same visitors from the sky. Of course, mainstream academia generally believes that these stories about lost civilizations are just myths, but some archaeological discoveries in recent years have made things more complicated. For example, in 2012, in the North Sea, east of the British Isles, people discovered a submerged ancient continent, Dockerland, and in 2017, near New Zealand, a large submerged continent was also discovered, Zealandia. These discoveries indicate that in ancient times, drastic changes in sea levels did indeed reshape the Earth's landscape, with large areas of land swallowed by the sea. Therefore, when we see those ancient legends about lost continents, perhaps we cannot simply dismiss them all as myths. In fact, just in the Mediterranean region, more than 200 submerged ancient cities have already been discovered. This shows that there is still a vast amount of history on Earth waiting to be discovered. Many civilizations may have appeared and disappeared, and we still do not fully understand them today. In North American indigenous traditions, human history is described as a cycle of constant destruction and rebirth. Interestingly, this concept is very similar to the legends of many ancient civilizations around the world. In the Noah's Ark legend, the sons of God came down to earth and taught humans many evil behaviors. Ultimately, God decided to intervene, and a great flood that destroyed the world descended. In the Sumerian Epic of Gilgamesh, there are similar records. The Council of Gods decided to unleash a flood to cleanse the entire world. And in Inca civilization mythology, the creator god Viracocha also caused a massive flood to destroy the old world. These stories almost completely correspond to the Hopi tribe's tradition of the four worlds. In their legends, human civilizations have been destroyed multiple times, and each destruction came from divine intervention. Interestingly, the structure of these stories is almost identical, and it is precisely because of this that some researchers have proposed a bold idea. Perhaps at certain key moments in human history, there really existed some intervening force from outside. In the view of ancient astronaut theory, there may be some ancient civilizations in human history that have been overlooked or even deliberately avoided. But as time passes, more and more ruins and clues are surfacing. Perhaps the truth about human origins is slowly being revealed. In 2003, members of the Association for Research and Enlightenment conducted an aerial search hoping to find possible artificial structures underwater. There, they discovered some anomalous terrain structures. Researchers believe these ruins could likely date back to the end of the last ice age, about 11,000 to 12,000 years ago. This survey was part of a long-term research project conducted in collaboration with the Case Foundation, with the aim of finding possible remains left by Atlantis. And the person who proposed this location was the famous psychic Edgar Case. Case was born in 1877 and died in 1945, known as America's most famous psychic. It is said that he left behind more than 14,000 so-called psychic readings in his lifetime. In these records, Case not only talked about reincarnation, but also mentioned that many people had lived in Atlantis in previous lives. Furthermore, Case even proposed a very bold view. Many residents of the Atlantis civilization collectively reincarnated after that destruction. In his psychic readings, Case claimed that the true history of the Atlantis civilization is preserved in 3 hidden halls of records. One of them is said to be located near the Sphinx in Egypt, another in the seabed of the Bahamas, and the third in the Yucatan Peninsula. According to Case, as long as any one of these 3 locations is found, enough information could be obtained to piece together the true history of humanity and reveal a shocking possibility. In ancient times, there was once far more extensive alien civilization activity on Earth than we imagine. So the question is, could some of the underwater ruins discovered in the Bahamas waters in recent years exactly confirm Case's claims? If so, should we also take seriously some of his prophecies about the future? Case repeatedly mentioned concepts of earth changes and pole shifts throughout his life. He believed that, in ancient times, it was precisely such drastic earth changes that led to the destruction of civilizations. In his prophecies, similar pole shift events may occur again in the future. Theoretically, if a small asteroid passes Earth at a special angle without actually impacting the surface, it could still disrupt Earth's rotational axis. Once this happens, the distribution of land and oceans could be completely rewritten. From a certain perspective, the era humans are living in today may be at a similar historical juncture to that of the Atlantean residents back then. Perhaps by studying these stories of lost civilizations, we can learn what they went through and draw lessons from them too. Prevent human civilization from heading toward destruction again. As more and more clues are discovered, some believe a shocking fact is gradually emerging. Humans may not be the first highly civilized species on Earth. Even before humans had written records, other advanced civilizations may have already existed. If this is ultimately proven, humanity's understanding of its own history will be completely changed. So are those ancient legends about gods and visitors from other worlds. Really, just myths. Or one day in the future, when these lost civilizations are truly discovered, we will realize that human origins may be far more complex than we imagined. Perhaps we are standing on the edge of unraveling this great mystery. But the question is, before all this happens, can we really find the answers in time?